You are with us once again on Let's Talk It Out, and we last had you early this year, if I'm not mistaken, where you
Yes.
were bringing us new exciting news as South Africans on the strategic ways of earning the SASSA money, the SASSA grant, of which I have said it a little bit, that I think your system, okay, your system that you have explained on the first book, it has already kicked in. If I'm not mistaken, you will correct me, because I have seen that even the spaza shops, they are now giving out monies to people, and I was a bit shocked because I didn't know that they've got those type of services, that people can just go to a spaza shop and withdraw money easy like that, of which it's one of the things that you have mentioned on your first book. So tell us, is it true? Is it working already? What is happening with that first book that you wrote about? I forgot now the name, the title of your book. I forgot it because there are many things on my head.
Yes.
You can just testify on what I'm saying.
Yes. Thanks, Magaba. Yes. The title of my first book is New Ways of Paying Social Grants.
Yes.
Yes, and I did some research around the new ways of paying social grant. My deliberations are not based. I'm not speaking on behalf of SASSA, but I'm speaking as an academic and based on the implementation of my research, which is a book. In that book, I recommended 4 payment methods. The first one was a traditional one, which was the cash payments. The second one was the one where people get their money through the merchants, meaning that they get from the supermarkets. And the other one is what we call ACB, where people get their monies from the banks, different commercial banks. Then the fourth one, it was we have a contract. SASSA is a contract with the post office. Subsequent to that, then all of them were used, but I think, especially in the Eastern Cape, I know that about 90% of the beneficiaries are actually have moved from the cash payment to the other method of payments, which is actually now is an issue of saying we've got multiple ways of getting social grants, and this is what is currently happening. We've migrated people to get their monies via the banks. Obviously, there are a few challenges, especially from the people from the villages where there are no infrastructure. They are unable to get the monies because of the lack of infrastructure. Some villages do not have even electricity. But the bulk of the beneficiaries get their monies through those payment method that I've mentioned.
Okay. Yeah, because I think we're saying the same thing here, that the strategies and your research that you have done before, I have seen it that it has kicked in. So, which is why I'm saying, is it that book, or is it because also government on their side, they were planning to do the same thing as you are? Because I'm caught up in between when you are putting yourself aside from SASSA. Tell us, what is the difference between you working for social services and also you as Dr. Gola that has done the research? I think my viewers would love to understand, where do we draw the boundary and say, this is now Dr. Gola alone, this is now Dr. Gola with SASSA, and this match here. Okay, can you go into depth with that?
All right, there is a close relationship in terms of my research and what SASSA is currently doing. But as I said, that I don't speak on behalf of SASSA, but the research was based on the activities and the transactions SASSA is implementing. So my research was a realistic implementable research which SASSA was actually implementing, but we had to fast track because of the challenges that we were experiencing. So there is a close relationship in terms of my research and the recommendation that I made and what SASSA is implementing.
Okay, so if I get you right, viewers, and you will correct me, Dr. Gola. Dr. Gola is saying that him and SASSA, they have a close relationship, okay? He has done the research, and SASSA was also leading the research of Mr. Gola. So what we see happen in terms of the easier and the better ways of getting social grants was researched none other than by Dr. Gola, you know? So, oh my God, here is a call. Can I be helped here? There's a call that is busy. Oh God, there was a call that came in. So I'm very sorry about that.
Okay.
So I believe I made sense now to the viewers as to where is the match between you and SASSA. How does this come about? And okay, I think we understand.
Okay.
Yeah, I think yes, we do.
All right.
We do. Because I wanted to understand where is the reality of things in all of this research, okay? Is it gonna be implemented by who? You understand, and how? So when you say you and SASSA are having a close relationship, then it gives me the hope that what we see happening already in South Africa in terms of the strategies of SASSA of giving money to the post office, the banks, the what, it is through your research that you have done. Correct me then.
Yes, the recommendation were partly implemented, but my recommendation was to say let's spread across so that we can increase the pool of payment methods to the beneficiaries. As I'm saying that in the Eastern Cape, for instance, currently we have beneficiaries getting their social grants. It was the last time I've checked, they were about 96% of the beneficiaries that were actually using the other grant payment method, rather only 4% that were getting cash payment.
Oh, okay.
Which we are increasing that number, yes.
Okay, so which one was working best for the people of Eastern Cape? Because we know it's rural areas, people, it's not urban areas, okay? Towns are very far. So which is why I am asking which one was working best for the people of Eastern Cape?
Look, we move with technology. When we started paying, SASSA starting paying social grants, the cash payment method was used. Subsequent to that, then the agency introduced the other payment method. And as my recommendation on my book to say, let's explore the other payment method and follow that trend. Hence, I'm saying that we have increased the payment method of our beneficiaries 96%. I think we have only 4% that is getting a cash payment.
Okay, let us move on. I like that because at the end of the day, it is not about just getting research, writing a book, then, you know, the thing is not being implemented. My thing is that let us see it work, you know. So I smile, you know, I'm having a big smile when you say 96% of what you have researched is already working, you know, in the Eastern Cape, which is what we want, you know, our people to get things easier than before, which is good. Now, we let us go back a little bit on the first book before we can go to your second edition, okay? And what else maybe that you see that it is still not being in place? Maybe it needs to be maneuvered here and there, you know, because you know that not everything will just go smooth like that. Some, there will be blockages and stuff like that, but you know, ideas, they get to be renewed every now and again. So which one of those strategies that you think they need maybe to be maneuvered again, and or maybe to be revisited, or maybe more research than before?
All right, maybe let me start with the first one, to say that there are benefits, there are still challenges. Maybe let's start with the challenges that we still have. We still have the challenges of the other merchants that have not yet joined. The merchants, I'm talking about supermarkets now, especially the local and the rural supermarkets that must still be in the system as well. So we ought to incorporate those as well. That will also help in terms of the local economic development, so that whatever money that is generated there, it can circulate among the local communities. The good news is that the financial institutions, the banks, have recognized their role. Remember, when we had the last interview, I met some of the executives of the financial institution when I was trying to say merchants that have not yet joined. The merchants, I'm talking about supermarkets now, especially the local and the rural supermarkets that must still be in the system as well. So we ought to incorporate those as well. That will also help in terms of the local economic development, so that whatever money that is generated there, it can circulate among the local communities. The good news is that the financial institutions, the banks, have recognized their role. Remember, when we had the last interview, I met some of the executives of the financial institution when I was trying to sort of introduce them to the concept and my idea to have them on board. They could not understand their role. Subsequent to that, I had a meeting with several banks, and then we sort of explained our aspirations and what role do we see them playing. Obviously, we have started with small, with Ndlambe area, which is Port Alfred. We had people migrated there from getting their money from the post offices, and we then moved to Patterson, and that is where the other people were able then to sort of get on board. As a result, in Port Alfred, we've migrated. We had a meeting with the banks. We've migrated people that were getting the money through the post office. Unfortunately, the post office in Port Alfred closed down, so we're then forced to fast track the engagement with the banks. We have the banks on board now, and then the next one was Patterson. The post office in Patterson also closed. We also invited the banks. So I'm quite excited now. The financial institutions have realized the role that they ought to play in payment of social grants, which is exactly what I motivated and recommended in my first book.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now let us kick the ball to the hood. Tell us about your second edition. What is it entailing, and what is it that is different from the first book?
Okay, I'm quite excited. That's my second born. My second book is based on how to make better lives for all by reducing inequalities and poverty. That That book is based on analyzing the current challenges that we are experiencing in South Africa. And I said in my introduction in that book, the first problem we have in South Africa is poverty. Yes. And because we have the problem in poverty, there's an implication, a direct impact in terms of the crime. And so I sort of recommended ways on how to close the gap, because the gap that has been created by COVID-19 in terms of between the rich and the working class has broadened because of the COVID. People lost jobs. When I started writing the book, the unemployment rate in South Africa was at 44%. That is almost about half of the population was not working. I saw this morning that there has been an increase in terms of 1%, meaning that we're talking about 45% of the population that is working currently. But still, that becomes a problem. And in my recommendation in that book, we've analyzed those socioeconomic problems and which threaten South Africa. And part of those are also the issues of inequality. Because remember, when there is poverty, there are inequalities, you see. And then I came up with sort of analyzing the current situation that says the consequences of poverty is crime. We observe, on my observation, we see lawlessness that is happening with South Africa. It seems as if everyone, because of poverty, is trying to cope for himself. I looked at the destruction of the economic infrastructure that is happening. You go to the township, I realized that the streetlights are destroyed, and those metals are sold to chicks. The railway stations are collapsing, and because people are destroying those things, and those are the consequences and the direct impact caused by poverty. And I'm saying that somehow there has to be a partnership in terms of, one, we ought to acknowledge as South Africans that we have a problem of unemployment, and unemployment compromises the dignity of the people, and a desperate person will do anything. And somehow we begin to say there is a way in terms of sort of trying to improve the current socioeconomic problems. Again, I highlighted an issue of saying, let's analyze the economic policies of the government. Are the economic policies of government assisting us in terms of improving the economic conditions of the people? If not, what is it that we can do? I'm challenging the political principle to be saying, lawmakers, if we're talking about BE, is BE working? Is BE empowering the few elites? Is BE improving the lives of the people? And there's an issue again of saying South Africa were rich in terms of natural resources. Yes. What is it that we can do in terms of ensuring that we cultivate our land? Food security is done. I don't understand why should we import food whilst we've got natural land where we can cultivate, where we can plant and produce food, you see? And I'm saying that somehow we ought to change our mindset. We cannot depend on social grants. Yes. as something that will be able to sustain us. We are the developmental state, but somehow I believe that don't give a man a fish, give a rope to fish, so that that person can be able to sustain. The other issue which I'm bringing is an issue of corruption. I'm saying somehow, even if when talking about Black economic empowerment, are we saying there is a synonym between economic development and corruption? Because corruption is an enemy to any economic development of any country. because investors would not be able to come to South Africa if corruption is rife. So somehow one of the executive board members from ESCOM 2 weeks ago was talking about, let's reconsider the issue of BEE. Are we saying BEE is not working? And I've heard the politicians up in arm with him, but I'm saying there is something that we ought to sort of analyze and say, what is it that is not working with BEE? Do we have BEE as a piece of legislation? Is BEE implementable so that ordinary people's life can improve to better? So why do we have economic policies that we are unable to benefit? So I'm looking in my second book broadly in terms of trying to look at economic goals that are adopted internationally. You see, World Bank and all that. How do we then ensure that we sort of benefit in terms of the transactions that are happening between South Africa and globally? But again, there's also an issue of the new challenge that we've got currently, which becomes a threat to the growth of in economy, the load shedding. Where are we and when are we going to be saying we have tackled the issue of infrastructure? How do we then cleanse ESCOM to ensure that we've got sustainable? I see people talking about alternative power, energy, generating power. Are we saying that ordinary people will be able to afford the private generated power? And this is what we ought to look at, and that's what my book is looking at. I'm looking at broadly to say, hence my title of the book is to say, how do we then ensure, we talk about better life for all, but in reality, how do we ensure that we translate the concept of making better life for all by ensuring that it has a direct impact in the lives of the people, ordinary people, people who wake up every day not knowing where their next meal will be coming from. And we're talking about making better life for all. And my book is looking at that. So it's looking at broadly. In there's a part that is talking about the families. I think that's chapter 2 of the book. The reason that I came up with that concept, it is because the home environment is the initial stage to mold and build a character of a child. Yeah. And again, I'm saying if that person goes out either to school, if the person there's a foundation of sustained background of bringing that child at a home environment, we should be able to say that we've groomed the child, and until the child is 5 years old, the child will go out to preschool. What impact will that child be amongst the peers there? Because the school cannot, it's a secondary foundation of building the character of a child. Obviously, the neighbors are contributing in also in terms of influencing the mentality of the child. When the child goes up to socially and in a working environment. And that's another way of reducing the mentality. And I'm saying it cannot be right to say when we talk about Africa, we talk about corruption. There is a way that we should be doing as parents in terms of trying and change the mentality, you see, of the perception about people, about Africa. And that the first stage is the home environment as a first building block. Yeah. So when we're talking about poverty, or fighting corruption, that should start at home. The church is also, because in one sub topic there, I'm talking about the role of the church. I'm talking about the role of the other organization in terms of ensuring, because I'm saying if you belong to a certain church, and you are involved in corruption, that church it should be able to transform the mind of the members of the church, so that when you go to the corporate world, you are able to say, you know what is right and what is wrong. And that will change the mentality of the society.
Yes. You know, Mr. Gola, I need to stop you somewhere, somehow, because I have been grasping a lot. I'm eating a lot out of your book, and I love it. I'm not going to lie. I don't know between the first one and the second one, but I love both of them, because they've got, what I'm checking is that both of these, they've got weight, and these are big wings that can make one to fly in a balanced mode, you know, because this side, you are talking about how to an easier way of getting the social grant without you know, how can I put it? But I guess you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
But on the other side, it's about inequality, you know. So we need to balance the first book with the second book, because if the second book, which is talking about the inequality, is not in place, there will be no social grants or whatever. But at the very same time, without the first book, whereby you're talking about people, instead of importing food, why don't we, as South Africans first, make sure that we fill our tummy? You know, we used to have to plow fields. We used to grow crops and stuff like that. There wasn't so much of poverty, and people were stationed in Eastern Cape, loving their land and everything, up until, you know, the administration changed somehow, and people were introduced to a small grain, to say that, you know, each and every month I've got a grain for you, instead of having the whole field, you know, with crops for one person, which is like you are a rich person, you know, so you can even sell in that manner for yourself and for your family. Now, what I'm trying to come up with here, Mr. Gola, is that your books, both of them, they go together like this. That's what I see.
Thank you.
It's an Old Testament with a New Testament. Sorry to
Yeah. Look, in terms of the social grants beneficiaries, the majority of the beneficiaries are females. Now, I'm saying when it comes to inequality, the topic that I'm talking about, gender-based inequality, and I'm saying somehow, yes, females were depressed, and somehow we ought to change our mind in terms of how we treat women, because at the end of the day, you know, sometime early this year, backwards, there's been an issue of gender-based violence, and it is because of the economic muscles of the males, where they take advantage of the females who are vulnerable. And I'm saying somehow we ought to come up with ways of ensuring that we also equip females so that they become financially independent. Because somehow there is a concept from males, and I want to challenge, as we start the 16 days of activism this month, I'm beginning to say to my counterparts, there comes a time where we ought to respect women, where we are saying that women depend on us. Somehow, if we increase the issue of gender-based violence, then we are killing the nation. Because at the end of the day, the very same people who need our protection are the very same people who become our victims. And I'm saying in that book, somehow we ought to equip the females. I'm bringing up 3 girls, and the only thing that I'm praying for them, I always say to them, I want you to go to school so that you become financially independent and not depend on men for survival. And that's a concept that we ought to sort of inculcate to the society so that we can change the perception of the society.
Yeah, which is good, Mr. Gola, because you know we are being taken advantage on the basis that you know you are at home, you are not working, this is not happening, you do not have skills. You know, I was on this gender-based violence thing. I was at court not so long ago, and I was talking with some of the women there, and fortunate enough, there was the old school women and the new school women. And the way they see things is very different. The old school is saying, to say you're going to keep on changing men instead of persevering the one that you have, even if